Welcome back to Mobile Device Automation with UiPath Test Suite. In most of the demos before, we've used UiPath Test Suite with mobile devices emulated in cloud, using Sauce Labs. You would be entitled to ask, does the Mobile Device Manager work with local devices too? Great question, and the answer is yes. But in fact, when we say local devices, we may be referring to locally emulated devices, or physical devices. And indeed, UiPath Test Suite works with both. In this video, we'll see how we can set up the environment for connecting to local devices on a Windows machine. We'll then have two separate videos on connecting the two types of local devices. First of all, the prerequisites. There are two pieces of software you need to install on your machine, Node.js and Java. And you need a third one for emulating the local devices. That is, the actual emulator. We'll go with Android Studio in this example. Node.js can be downloaded from the Downloads page of the official website, nodejs.org. Next, you can download Java from the official website, java.com. Finally, the emulator. You can install Android Studio from the official site, developer.android.com/studio. Next, we need Appium installed on our machine. This automation framework is basically the one performing the automations on the devices, using a web driver. To install the Appium Server, let's run the following command: npm install -g appium at 1.19.1 from the command prompt. Let's give a couple of seconds for this to finish. Great, Appium version 1.19.1 is now installed. The next step is to set up the environment variables which are relevant for working with local mobile devices. To do that, let's open Control Panel and search for Environment. Then click Edit Environment Variables. We'll start with the system variables. The first one we'll take care of is Android_home. We have to make sure it is set to the SDK folder. Then have Java_home set to the install folder of Java. Okay, now let's move to the user variables, more specifically to the path variable. Let's click Edit and add the line highlighted here at the end. Once this is done, we can save the changes. Great, now let's quickly configure the Android Studio we previously downloaded and installed. Open it, click Configure, and then Settings. Here, open the Android SDK page. Go to the SDK Tools tab and uncheck the Hide Obsolete Packages option. Once this is done, Android SDK Tools becomes visible. We need to check its box. In our case it is checked, because we've done it earlier. If in your case it's not, check it and click Apply to install it. That's all here, and we're done with all the prerequisites and configurations. Let's now emulate a virtual device. We'll start by clicking Configure once more, and then click Android Virtual Device Manager, or AVD for short. From the AVD main window, let's click Create Virtual Device, here on the bottom left. From this window, we can choose the make and model for our virtual mobile device, and the options are quite extensive. Let's go for Google Pixel, and click Next to choose the Android version. In the next window, we'll rename the device. Let's now click Finish to create our virtual device. With that, we have reached the end of this demo. Ready to create your own virtual devices. Before that, let's have a quick recap. So far, we've seen the prerequisites, Node.js, Java, and Android Studio, how to install Appium, how to set up the environment variables, the system variables, and the user variables, and how to create and configure a virtual device in Android Studio. That's all for setting up an environment for mobile automation on local devices. Since the environment is created and configured, we're ready to see how to connect to local mobile devices. But for that, we'll meet again in the next video.